There we go. We are being recorded. So thank you all for coming. It is now 10:36 my time. I'm going to go ahead and start. Now let's see if screen sharing behaves itself. Michelle kindly helped me test it earlier. Oops, wait, that's not going to work because I did something else in between. Go back to PowerPoint. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, but now it's going to do that. Yep. I don't know why it gives you that option, but let me go back to Zoom. Okay, now if I do share screen and say I want to share, we should go to my PowerPoint. It worked before. We're hoping it works again. I am hoping all of you can see my screen. If you have problems, it's going to be hard for me to tell during the talk. If there's something happens, unmute yourself and say, hey, Janice, we're having a problem, because if you just do it visually, I'm probably going to miss it. Let me get that out of my way and say, okay, so online resources for Jewish genealogy. The main one, still known as the home of Jewish genealogy online, is Jewish Gen. They finally have added a lot more Sephardic content, so it is not as Ashkenazi-centric as it used to be. There are tons of databases with vital records, voter lists, directories, censuses, property tax lists, cemetery information, etc. And more images are now being linked that were not previously. Background and historical material. Family Finder. This is a really cool thing, a free way to connect with people. Oops. Okay, I got to admit people while I'm doing this. There are still lots of special interest groups. There are a couple of email lists. Most of them have been concatenated into one. I think that was done to save money, unfortunately. It does not serve people as well as when we had separate ones. And educational videos. So, here's our homepage for Jewish Gen these days. What I'm going to be doing is highlighting some of the information from the handout. I did post the handout already. I'm not going to be able to keep copying that. Ooh, Linda, if you could copy that link a couple times while I'm talking as more people come in, it would be great. Thank you. So, the order in which they put them is not necessarily the order in which a lot of people approach it. I would have thought learning would have been one of the first things they would have put on that little handy little nav bar. But you can learn about, well, search methods. Methodology means the study of methods, not the actual methods. Right, Michelle? And research advice. So if you go over there, there's a lot of information. This is the research advice part. So a lot of the accumulated wisdom of many decades of Jewish researchers has been put into written form and posted online. So if you're looking for information about how to do stuff, where to look for things, this is one of the best places to start. So as an example, there's a fact about Eastern Europe. Ways to access records there, bibliographies, descriptions of available resources, constantly being updated. Oh, hello, Julie. Provinces and regions with historical information, which countries controlled them at which times. Always a useful thing. So like for the one for the Russian Empire, that's a general heading for what was the Tsarist Russian Empire prior to 1917, 1918, it fell apart. Includes a lot of the countries that we are dealing with in our research, even for some Sephardim. And there's a visual of a lot of the territory we're talking about. So you have to know what it was then and what it was now, because those two are not always intuitively the same. There are classes that Jewish Gen offers. They have some short ones that are offered for free. Most of them nowadays are ones that they charge for, but they have different skill levels, different subjects. Lower on the page here, you can only fit so much on one slide. Other topics by country. So if you would like a handy dandy course suited specifically to Jewish genealogy, this is a good place to look. They call it Connect. Family Finder is one of the handiest resources, especially with the demise of a lot of written magazines. A lot of times people used to post the surnames they were researching in magazines. Nowadays, people do that kind of thing online, and Jewish Gen offers that. So the Family Finder, as it says, database of towns and surnames being researched by people. This is based on what people input themselves. If you don't add your information, people are not going to find you. So you can add all the names, look at your list, search the database for people researching the same surnames that you are. That's the beginning of my list. I have 45 names in there, I think. And you list them in there by name and location. So if you know where they came from prior to coming to the United States, and I say that because most people doing this research and attending this talk are in the United States. But every place you know that they stopped in between, you can list them all, and people can find you that way. If by some chance you have a place that you have documentation for that does not show up as a place in the database, you can submit your information and have it added. The basic town list is for places outside the US is based on places that had a minimum population of Jews around 1900, but people came from other places also. So if your town isn't listed, you can write to Jewish Gen and say, hey, I have documentation. This is where my family was from. They can add the town to the list. So here you can search for people looking for the same name that you are researching. Sounds like, just like on Ancestry, you can do exact, but it will definitely affect the number of results you get. You can put a town if you have a specific one in mind, especially if you have a more common name. If not, feel free to just put the name in and say, look, Gorodetsky. I find 27 researchers, and sounds like because Russian does not have an H. So sometimes what we might have spelled with a G ends up being with an H in Russian. But all these people, I mean, those are basically all the same name. None of these people are in the same place that my family was. So far, I haven't gotten anywhere with that particular thing. I'm still working on it. Another way, well, connect, I would put this under discover. It's interesting how they classify things. ViewMate, it's a very convenient way for you to post documents, photographs, whatever that you want to share with other people. Sometimes people post photographs asking if anyone knows any of the people in them. Lots of people post documents asking for translation. The ways to use it and the limitations, right now it's up there for 7 days. If it hasn't been answered, you can repost it too. But it's a very convenient way to share documents with other people. The discussion group, just like lots of other sites, we have an email group where you can talk with other people. I don't know how many of you are signed up for the Jewish Gen discussion group, but if you haven't, you might try it. It's a good way to find out what other people are researching, ask for advice with whatever you're stuck on. As I mentioned earlier, it used to be that there were several different discussion groups with subsets of topics. When Jewish Gen changed the server for that, they went to one big discussion group, and now they use tags. I found it better when it was several small ones, but this is what we have. So feel free to join and put in all your questions. Maybe you will find people you're connected with. Various addresses associated with it, the various settings, like members cannot edit their messages. Oh, but there is an archive. You can look up the old messages. The burial registry, Jewish Online Worldwide Burial Registry. I pronounce it Jober. I think Nolan pronounces it Jauber or Jauber. This is a volunteer-led thing, like almost everything with Jewish Gen. People collect information from cemeteries and submit the information. Some people do this as individuals. Some societies do this as a group. You can get details more about Jober, how you can contribute, see the contents of the database, tells you all the cemeteries. You can search for a surname. To clarify something I've seen some people get confused about, everything on Jewish Gen, all the information that is posted, is available for free to everybody everywhere, period. If you choose to contribute money to Jewish Gen to help support its ongoing need for money, you will get other options for search that you do not have as being a free member. You will get some notifications that they don't do to free members, but all the information on Jewish Gen is available free to everybody everywhere. I think you also get, if you pay, you also get discounts on some of the classes. Anyway, so you can search in here. So if I say, oh, here's the list of the cemeteries, as of the last time I checked, 4.2 million burial records from 9,500 cemeteries in 143 countries. So that's a lot of records on dead people. I was researching this family for a while. I still look for information on them, so I put in Steinfurst, and I was looking for them in Pennsylvania. And I get 5 records in Pennsylvania. Click over there. Those are my 5 Steinfursts. Sometimes the full burial record has additional information. Sometimes it's just a repeat of what you have here. If there are photographs, there will be a link to photographs of the tombstones also. We have databases on tons and tons of information. So, country and topical databases. You have a little menu at the top giving you the overall groupings. These do change over time. When I made sure this was updated for this talk today, they had dropped 3 different categories. I don't know how they make those decisions, but they do. So under General, Jewish Gen Family Finder, Family Tree of the Jewish People, not as helpful as Family Finder. A couple other things I'm going to be talking about later. Holocaust database. You can click on any of these and see what databases are on the site. Sometimes you can search a database individually. Usually you search by everything at once. So in the Hungary databases, there's the 1828 Hungarian property tax census that's been transcribed. So this was people owning taxable property. The entire census was filmed by the LDS Church. The 1869 population census was a census of everybody. So 12 of the 15 counties, at least as of the last information I have, were filmed by the LDS Church. So here's the 1828 census. You get the name of the head of household, kind of houses and values, land and value, grain production, what meadows and what vineyards were attached to that property. You get to find out if somebody was growing grain grapes. The 1869 census. I thought I had turned that stuff off, but this is an every person census. You get name, sex, year of birth, marital status, occupation, and profession. Not necessarily the same thing in the Hungarians' minds. Where they were born, citizenship, residency, literacy. And it's a lot of cool information to have on your family members. Eastern European databases. Some examples. The Rosia business directories covered the entire empire, and some of the editions that were published that we have are those. You can find family members listed in them, tells you where they were and what they were doing. It is a business directory. If somebody was not running a business, not going to be listed. Okay, Town Finder. This is an amazingly awesome resource in general because it's a great way to find the names of places that you're not sure how it was supposed to have been spelled. I think that's the last link there. So about 6,000 places specifically known to have had Jewish populations. That's that same list that the Family Finder list is based on. So it has lists of alternative names over time in different languages, local variants, and a lot of the Yiddish names for these places. Different historical jurisdictions during specific time periods. So who controlled it, which country, what was the county it was in at that time. And if there are more pages on Jewish Gen with information, there's going to be links to them. Most of these places, majority of the population was never Jewish. Most of the time it was a minority. So there's our lovely little search thing. I'm going to search for Kamenets in Ukraine, where I was told my family members were from. I get a result of 1. Kamenets-Podolsky, which in Ukrainian, I don't pronounce Ukrainian very well, so Kamianets-Podilsky. This is the alternative names. Sometimes it's in different languages, so we have Polish, Romanian, Latin. Here's the Yiddish one, and sometimes it's variations of the name depending on which time period and who was controlling it. So Kamenets-Podolsky, or Podolsk, is more when it was under Russian control. Before 1900, this was part of the Russian Empire. Between World War I and World War II, it was part of the Soviet Union. Around 1950, part of the Soviet Union. At this point, modern town and country, it's part of Ukraine. How many people have family finder names that said they're from Kamenets-Podolsky? 690. That's a lot of people. It was a big city. If it has that little symbol and you mouse over it, you will get a little pop-up with some of this information repeated. You also get some population figures, and you click on it, and it takes you to the information page on Jewish Gen. Repeats the information about the alternate names, repeats this information about the jurisdictions, some small notes, there's a map, also nearby Jewish communities. If you might have been told that your family was from, let's say, Orinian, and, oh, it's supposed to be near Kamenets-Podolsky, well, you can go to Kamenets-Podolsky and say, oh, it's 10 miles away. Okay, that's probably the right place. There are a lot of places with the same name in different areas, so that can be very helpful to narrow down where you should be looking. Every time I find my family members listed in Russian records, it says they were registered in Orinian. Orinian apparently was really tiny, has no records of its own. There's one minor entry about it in one of the Kamenets-Podolsky Yuzker books. But you get Yuzker books that are about this city. Kahila link, if somebody has created a Kahila link page, I'll be talking about them. Cemeteries that are in Jober related to this area. Now, the Gazetteer is the flip side of the Community Town Finder. These are not places that are specifically noted as having Jewish populations, but the basic concept is the same. So this is a million places, 45 different countries. It's based on U.S. Board on Geographic Names databases, so it's a standardized way of saying the information. Also gives you some alternative names. It gives you the official name, and one of the useful things, again, distance from a given reference point. The standard one is from the capital of the country it's in. Maybe you know how to pronounce a name because this is how your family member said it, but you haven't been able to figure out how to spell it. This is also where Town Finder is handy. So they actually have links back and forth between the Gazetteer and the community database. Yizker books. One of the big projects of Jewish Gen has been translations of Yizker books. Yizker means memory. There were Yizker books prior to World War II, but after World War II and the Holocaust, when a lot of towns and their populations were almost entirely destroyed or totally destroyed, people afterward who had survived would get together to remember their town, and then a lot of them published a Yizker book commemorating the town, who used to be there, the history that as different people who were in that group publishing the book remembered. So look to see if there's a Yizker book for a place that you are researching. One of the useful things specifically in terms of genealogy, most Yizker books have a necrology, that list of the people that they believed had died from that town during World War II. So you might be able to find names in there that correlate with information about your family. There is information about the Yizker Book Project, always needing help with translations. Donations for professional translators, or if you know how to translate, you will be greatly appreciated. There's an index just for the necrologies. There's a master name index for the Yizker books. A lot of information about them. Look to see what exists for your town. Kahila links. This is one of the things that changed on Jewish Gen when it became less Ashkenazi centric, because this used to be shtetl links. And well, shtetl is from Yiddish. And if your family wasn't Ashkenazi, they probably didn't speak Yiddish, did they? So Kehillah is from the Hebrew, much more neutral. Again, this thing changes over time. So when I had originally done this, it was Belarus and Russia. Now they've added Georgia because they have somebody that. Kehillah Link is for a specific community, totally run by volunteers. There are people volunteering with Jewish Gen who will help you if you want to start and or maintain a Kehillah Link page. But this is a way to collect information about a specific location and share that with other people. You can solicit information from other people too. Post on the Jewish Gen list. I've just started a Kehillah Link page for, Portland, Oregon. Does anybody have any information to share? Because these are all volunteer projects, different people have different approaches to what they want to do with them. Some people, it's strictly historical information. Some people will do name indices on that page for people researching. You have to check each place, see what that volunteer has decided to put on a page. If I click on the Belarus, Georgia, where'd my pointer go? There it went. Georgia, Russia link. Lists Belarus first, and it has them in alphabetical order. So all of these places have Kehillah Link pages where you can find more information. What they used to call by the name of special interest groups now are research divisions. Sounds more important that way. So the research division is an overarching group handling research collection, documentation, sharing of information for a given area as defined on this list. Sometimes people add ones. There didn't used to be one for Bessarabia. Yefim Kogan was really, really enthusiastic about wanting to start one. So they said, yes, you can do that. Sometimes there will be some crossover between different groups. So there is a Ukraine group and a Bessarabia group, and there's some crossover between them. There's crossover between Bessarabia and Moldova. Any area that your family was in, depending on who controlled it at which time, check and see what's in that group's area. What do they have? So in Belarus, they have addresses for archives and libraries. Order changes, one of those useful things. Who controlled it today? Historical maps, lists of researchers, lists of translators, sources for records. So tons of information if you're researching in Belarus. One of the cool maps they have there is this 19th century map of the area. Figure out where your family was and who controlled that specific area over time. Check in each research division. Let's see, Romania. That one covers countries known today as Romania and Moldova as well as southwestern Ukraine and Hungary. Areas formerly known as Bukovina, Moldavia, Bessarabia, Transylvania, Wallachia, and the Banat. If any of those areas are related to your research, well, you should check to see what they have here. They have telephone directories, dictionaries, business directories, occupations in Romanian, tons of information to help you. And where are the archives? At one point, Romania specifically, more so than any other Eastern European location, was known for having bunches of con men trying to get people to pay them to help research their families, and people would get nothing. And the Romania SIG, I don't know if they have maintained this as the Romania Research Division, kept a list of these are people we actually trust to do research. I don't know if that's still being maintained now with the slight shift and shift in leadership. One of the things about genealogy is a lot of people doing genealogy tend toward the elderly, and the elderly tend to die sooner than the younger groups. So they lost some of their leadership as people have passed away. I don't know how much of the corporate information has been passed on. Southern Africa. Yes, there are Jews in Southern Africa. South Africa primarily, but all these other areas, known Jewish communities and information about them. So Associations and Societies, Governmental South African Sources, General Genealogy, National Archives of South Africa, Military and Land Records. So if you have anybody who is down there, this used to be a very active group. One of the board members of the San Francisco Bay Area, JGS, came from South Africa. He has tons of information on this, and newsletters and journals. Okay, that's an overview of Jewish Gen. I'm still working on a talk specifically about Jewish Gen. You should absolutely join. It's free. You will get bombarded constantly with reasons that you should donate money. That is your call. But avail yourself of all the resources that are there. Hey, Sephardic Gen. Well, when almost everything on Jewish Gen was really on Ashkenazi research, Jeff Malka said, if you're not going to have stuff that's about Sephardic research, I'm going to make my own website. And so he did, because Jeff is Sephardic. Here's the homepage for Sephardic Gen. This one is not as fancy in its graphics, but he has tons of information. He's very obsessive. Anything he finds, he will put a link to. So he gives you a page, how to start doing your Sephardic research. Differences between Sephardic and Ashkenazi genealogy. And then he has lists and lists and lists. So history, historical articles from the web. He also has things listed by country. If you have Sephardic ancestry, you should absolutely plow your way through his site. So Sephardic genealogy, how to search the databases, history, specifically Sephardic sites. Sephardic names, consolidated index of Sephardic surnames. He is really, really big on collecting information. Countries, these are the links that he had with information about Jewish research. More and more. Like I said, it's very basic as far as layout and not fancy graphics. It is packed full of information. Okay, one-step web pages. SteveMorse.org. You can also use StephenMorse.org and StephenMorse.com, but not SteveMorse.com because that is the imposter. When Steve started this, he tried to buy SteveMorse.com. It is owned by a rock guitarist who coincidentally is also named Steve Morse. Doesn't want to sell it. So that one will take you to rock music. The other will take you to things about genealogy. Steve Morse, computer programmer and search expert. He used to work for Netscape, among other places. He is Jewish. When he retired, he decided to start researching his family history. Right around that time was when the Ellis Island database came online. And like a lot of us, if you started using it then, he was very frustrated by how poor the interface was. It's still not good. But Steve said, fine, I'm going to make something better, because that's what Steve did for a living. This led to a lawsuit. Instead of trying to hire him, Ellis Island sued him. The upshot of that suit was an agreement between Steve and Ellis Island. That database information and that search page are hosted on Jewish Gen. Everything else on Steve's site is on his own server. It used to be just a computer under his desk. He creates all sorts of useful tools for all the things he uses in his own research. His server has not gone down. He created pages for, I think it was the 1930 census was the first big one. The National Archives site crashed. Steve's page was still working. So if he uses the database, he will usually create a better search interface for it. Most of them are about research he has done himself, so it's related in some way to his Jewish research, but he has created general ones. He does things like Russian transliteration, calendar conversions between the Christian, Muslim, and Hebrew calendars. You can also find Great Grandpa in One Step. I'm going to let you look for that one yourself. It's fun. Another very basic web page. Steve can do fancier, but this gets the work done and it doesn't take as long to load. So his broad categories, Ellis Island and Castle Garden, other ports into the U.S., U.S. Census, phonetic matching, something he and Alexander Bider created, censuses, US, UK, New York specifically, vital records, whole bunches of search pages to help you. So here's the Ellis Island one, because that's a good starting point for lots of research, period. You can click on these pages, overview, ship pictures, questions asked. He has lots of links to additional information. He used to have separate forms before they had started refining a lot of it. So now this is the form. Unless you're doing something really weird that doesn't work, use this form. Use this form instead of searching on the Ellis Island site. Use this form instead of searching on Ancestry. You will get better results. If you can't find it on the other sites, you can usually take his results, now that you know a ship somebody was on, and then get it on the other site. And you can search on other fields. So some of them you have to put in a last name, not with Steve's pages. So you can do first name, last name, somebody traveling with them, where they were from, port names, when they arrived, how old they were, things you want to see on your results page. It's an awesome search page. Vital records. Started off really focusing on New York because Steve is from New York City. But as he keeps finding other databases that are useful, he adds better search pages to them. So we get Social Security information, credit card numbers, driver's license numbers, voter records, lots and lots of New York City stuff, but New York State, New Jersey. Look to see if something you are working on is in this list. Here's this page for searching New York City death records and what they've started doing. This can change. Okay, I go to the death record page. Now I want to look for marriage. You do this little pop-up, you get some of the other options. Other places, all the different places he has search pages for. This one is the family search page, which is the LDS Church. All I did was search on Gershon Nowitzki. That's my great-great-grandfather. I get a grand total of one result, spelled Novitzky. Okay, that's the sounds like. Find out he just died December 12th, 1948 in Brooklyn. I didn't know he had lived that long until I talked to a cousin who remembered he was alive in 48 because my cousin Leon got married in 48 and Gershon was sick and couldn't come to the wedding. Well, that meant he was alive that day. Helped me find him in the death index. And then depending on what database this is with Family Search, sometimes it will link to an image. Sometimes you might have to do another search and do it that way. Here's marriage indices. Family Search. Italian genealogy group has been creating indices for decades. Ancestry, ancestry, ancestry. Phooey. Reclaim the records for more modern ones. I have not used open data. Not sure what that's about. But I was researching my aunt's family, and her grandmother's sister, I found out, traveled with her to come to this country. Her name was Ernestine Krebs. And cousins remembered she had gotten married, couldn't remember the name of the husband. So I get two Ernestine Krebs. One got married in 1887. Okay. My aunt's grandmother and her sister came in 1911. Hey, look, September 25th, 1911. And there they are. Tells you the certificate number. Now that New York City has started their own database, you might be able to find them there. Come on, pointer, come back. Which county/borough, who that person married, the family history library film, and part of the functionality they have added over the years, you can click and go actually get the image directly from this page. Foreign alphabets. If you don't read or understand Russian, if you don't read or understand Hebrew, I don't read Hebrew. Obviously, that can be a problem when you're researching Jewish ancestry, but Steve has things that'll help you. So there's a bunch of stuff with Hebrew, English to Russian. This is great for searching Russian databases. English print to cursive, English to Greek, Arabic, Japanese, Chinese. I don't think Steve's doing research in that, but once you've created one of these search pages, it's actually easy to do the next one. So he adds more and more. Oops, we have somebody else who showed up. Holocaust in Eastern Europe. Different places that there are databases. One of the interesting ones in there is Russians Fallen, which is people who fell in Russian wars. So you can get a description. There is a form in Russian. What if you want to search it? Oh, you need to have it in Cyrillic. But he tells you, enter the English text here, and it's going to transliterate it for you. So if I put in my family name of Garodetsky, you get multiple iterations with slight variations. Some of this is going to be based on pronunciation, because this is a transliteration from Cyrillic into Roman characters. You don't necessarily know, unless you've seen it on a document, how it was spelled in Russian. This gives you choices because this transliteration might not be consistent with how other people have done it. And then you can copy and paste because that's a text. There's my keyword in Cyrillic. Tells me it's going to be, he has default 20 hits per page. So even though his results are giving it in Roman characters, you still have to search it in Cyrillic. But now you can look up, does any of these names resonate with you for somebody in your family? For me, none of them did. On the other hand, this one did say Kamenets Podolsky. Still don't know who that is. Nothing I know of related to my family, but all Garodetsky is somebody who was from Garodets/Haradets, so it's not an uncommon surname. Calendars, Jewish, Muslim, French. The French Revolutionary calendar, when they got rid of the horrible one that was based on the Christian names and, well, Christian calendar and a lot of mythological names, and then came up with names like Frumaire and Brumaire. He has a conversion for it. The Mayan calendar, like I said, no, that's not his research. But once you've done one, you can do the next one. Perpetual calendars, explaining the Julian calendar. He has a talk about the Jewish calendar. It's really interesting. Hanukkah and Thanksgiving and how they interrelate based on the way the two calendars work. He also has things about maps, zip codes, Canadian postal codes. He's a little obsessive about creating stuff like this. New York census. Did you have family members in New York? There were special censuses. Steve had family members in New York City. He did search pages just about that. There's even history of the geography of New York City. He does not do a talk about that anymore, but other people do. U.S. Census. If you have people in the U.S., I tell everybody, this should be the foundation of your research. Do a complete census survey on your family. Steve has tools galore to help you. Also explanations. Why is the 72-year thing with the census where it's embargoed? Before 1940 and 1950, when everything was going to be no searchable index whatsoever at the beginning, he and some of his colleagues, especially Joel Weintraub, were giving talks about how to get ready for the census, how to start before they create the index. How are you going to find your people? So if you have not found people in the census, look at his page. There are tools there that might help you either find them or let you understand they are not there. I found out my great-grandmother is not in the 1940 census because that address was not enumerated. No way to change that. Bookmark Steve's site, use it often. Go back. Genealogy indexer. Logan Kleinwax. I have to remember, I always wanted to pronounce it the German way, and he pronounces it very American. So Logan Kleinwax, he's a computer programmer. Found out recently at his talk, he taught himself OCR technology when he started finding all these databases and wanted to be able to search them better. So he has put a lot of stuff on his site that will help you get through the problems with OCR. OCR, optical character recognition, programs that are set up to scan text, like the text on this slide, and say, oh, that's a C, that's an R, that's an E, that's an A, that's a T, that's a D, E, that's a D. Oh, that's the word created. And it interprets it that way and puts it in its little search. But if the text isn't clean, you might have problems. Logan has set up his thing to compensate for that. He is constantly looking for new databases and scanned books, adds them to his search engine. He does not have the books on his website. all he does is create search pages for ones that are on other sites. So there are directories of various sorts, military documents, school reports, histories, and he has Yizkor books too, and transliteration tools for Cyrillic, Hebrew, and Yiddish. Another very basic page. A lot of these are not flashy, and so a lot of people overlook them as being useful. Just because it isn't flashy does not mean it is not useful. A lot of times it's more useful. So he tells you more than 2 billion pages, no, 2 million of directories, 160,000 pages from Yizkor books, 32,000 pages of military lists. Very, very basic search here. Some of the options he gives you, which collection, if you want to restrict it, you can restrict it by date. By default, he's taking Latin characters and transliterating them, transliterates back and forth from Cyrillic. So a search will go between both, but you can refine that if you want. He gives you a guide. Oops, let me go back a second. Guide right there on the homepage. How to use his site, how it's set up, how to search for people, the search logic that he is using here. You can do complex Boolean expressions, proximity, how close is one word to another. So it is very helpful to look over this, especially if you are not getting results that you thought might be there. You can click on all those categories. So these are directories. He has them broken down by country, and at the beginning, multinational. So we have some for the Americas, a lot of things for the Austro-Hungarian Empire. He has a lot for that and a lot for Poland in particular. That's what he started off with. Oops, Ron Doctor. Hello, Ron. Multinational military sources, casualty lists up, down, and sideways for the Russian Empire. School sources. So these are various school lists that have been published and are available online. He's letting you search them. You can keep up to date with him. Under news, if you go to news, this is what you get. Subscribe to his little mailing list. I don't know if he went through a big purge. I used to be on his mailing list, and then I realized I no longer was. I just went back and re-signed up. So it's very simple. You're not going to get spam. He doesn't share with anybody. You get to find out when he adds stuff to the site or if there are changes. Boink. Okay, World War II and Holocaust. Obviously, this is very relevant for Jewish research, but the Nazis did not target only Jews. They also picked on Catholics, Roma, homosexuals, political dissidents, Poles, and a lot of other people just because they got in the Nazis' way. So some of them were displaced, some were sent to concentration work camps, and a lot of them were also killed. Something to keep in mind for World War II research in general. So there are World War II records about military movements, reparations that are available online that can also help you with your research. Now, the International Tracing Service was organized specifically to search for non-Germans who were missing or displaced during the war and to assist separated family members in reuniting. That was its purpose at the beginning. Every time somebody wrote in, they created a record, a separate record for every single inquiry. For years, these were not available because it was only in hard copy, only in Bad Arolsen. And there are various stories about they didn't want to share, they took their time getting back to anybody. The past is the past, but a lot of people didn't get information at that time. Some people still did, but now the information has been shared. There are copies of most of the files at the Holocaust Museum in DC. There is some information available online, and agreements have been made. More of it is becoming available online. This is an idea of the kind of stuff that they were digitizing information about. This is what they were using when people wrote in with inquiries about what happened to my family member. They were looking through these types of records. Now, the Holocaust Museum is one of the largest collections of Holocaust materials in the world. But again, not only on Jews, lots of other groups that get, no, I forgot to change Gypsies there to Romani. Jehovah's Witnesses, they didn't like either. There's information about invasion and occupation of Eastern and Western Europe, the liberation of Europe, when people were finding out about concentration camps and what had been happening in them. They have a lot of information on displaced persons camps for people who survived and, well, maybe there was no there to go back to. And a lot of people went to camps instead. Their homepage, if you scroll down to the bottom, you get academic research. That's where you can start searching for stuff. And on that page, collection search. It's a comprehensive search for records across all of their collections. As of the last I got this screenshot, more than 263,000 records. I don't know what they define as a record as opposed to a page, but they have things available digitally. You can search by dates, who has the records, personal stories, audio, video, film, images, objects, text. They have topics for events, cities, camps, ghettos, specific ways to refine your searches. Here's their advanced search page. Title, author, contributor, just a general, does it show up anywhere? When is it from? If you have library type information, which record, group number, when it was accession, where it came from, you can search by that. If I search by Oswego, because I had found out that there was a camp in New York, I get a few results, 55 results, not a lot, so not a lot of information because it's an American location. They don't have as much about American stuff. But one of the things under that, American military police help 3 little girls find their parents at the Fort Oswego Research Center in Oswego, New York. So there's little gems like this. Maybe you end up recognizing one of those that's my aunt. I like looking for Garodetsky because it's one of my family names and it's not as common as Kagan. 6 results, not very many. They have some family letters. There's an oral history interview with Yelena Garodetsky, not related. She was born in Kiev, not where my family was from. We have Stalin and the German Invasion of Russia by Gabriel Garodetsky. Look up every single one of your names. Can you find something? Here's the Garodetsky family letters. 6 photocopied personal letters from the Garodetsky family during World War II. So 5 letters from S.B. Garodetsky to his wife Zenaida, and 1 letter to his sister. Gives you lots of the technical information. They want to make sure everybody knows where it came from. Oh, no restrictions on access. Well, that's useful to know. But there are restrictions on use. You can get it, you can read it. What you can do with it afterward, you have to get permission. Read all of the detailed information. Here's Yelena Garodetsky from the oral history interview. Tells you it's in English. Displaced persons camps. One of the things they did, photographs of both Jewish and non-Jewish children were published in newspapers. They were trying to find people's families. And, well, we didn't know where the other family members might be. So photographs are a great way of recognizing people. I do not know how many people were reunited. I should ask Megan Lewis about that if there are statistics. Along with Jews, you had people from other countries and other groups who were displaced. So his was a Russian national, not Jewish, just Russian, Dmitry Gusikovsky. He was born in Tiflis, which is now Tbilisi, Georgia, and he was in a displaced persons camp in Salzburg, Austria. If you find information that somebody was in a DP camp, try to get all the documents. These files can be 25, 30, 40, 50 pages long. When they did intake, when they tried to verify anything, if they were trying to get to the United States, they went through a whole bunch of tests. You had to have your moral character approved. Immensely useful and informative. Okay, Yad Vashem. This is the World Center for Documentation, Research, Education, and Commemoration of the Holocaust specifically. After World War II ended, people started thinking about, well, wait a minute, how do we document all of our family members who are gone? And they started doing pages of testimony. And first collected in 1957, everywhere in Israel. You will find these as handwritten things. Most of them are in Hebrew from this period. And it was the information that the person submitting thought was accurate. So whoever they knew, if it was a family member, I've seen one, somebody submitted for a teacher. Especially it was supposed to be if you didn't think they had survived. What we have found out since then is that some of these people did survive. The decision at Yad Vashem has been no corrections will be made, no comments on any of these pages saying, oh, by the way, later we found this person was still alive. This is what somebody believed when they submitted the information, and we're going to leave it that way. So just because there is a page of testimony doesn't mean that person actually did die. Most of them certainly did. And they've started adding over the past several years information from other record types that they have been able to get access to. So train transports, lists of people in ghettos. The more information they have, the more they can document everybody. As of the last I had heard, the estimate is that they think that they have documented about 5 million of the 6 million that is usually used as the figure for how many people died. They're actively requesting people to submit more information. If you have done family research and believe you have found family members who died in the Holocaust who are not in the database, they want you to submit. You can download forms from their website or submit online. I was told they prefer you to submit by paper and mail it to them because they want that personal element as opposed to the cold, impersonal nature of computers. Here's the homepage. You can certainly investigate any and all of these. The digital collections, what most people go to first, is the Show and Names database. This has evolved over time. Used to be bunches of very, very separate pieces of information. As the years have gone on, they have started working on ways to consolidate. So instead of maybe 3 different pages about the same person that looked like it was 3 different people, they've gone through, figured out, oh, this is all about the same person, and it shows up as one person's results. This is the very, very basic search. I never use a basic search if I can avoid it. I at least look to see what's in advanced. Advanced, you can do victim name by last, first, and maiden name, other family members who might be listed, what you know about when the person was born, where. If you think that somebody submitted more than one, you can look for the submitter. This was very useful, in particular in the beginning when you had multiple things across different people. You would want to go back and forth between all the different things. Oh, this person was submitted by this person. Let me look for everything that that person submitted. It's still not everything is consolidated, so you want to really go back and forth with this and look as many ways as possible. When I got my great-grandfather's probate, it listed his sister. My grandaunt had her given and married names incorrect. Useful to keep track of things like that. But his probate said she was Sora Meckler, who had married Moishe Dubiner. So I looked for her. I got 2 results. Shows multiple sources. Her fate shows as murdered, and it shows that there are 2 sources that they use for the information. And this is a little bit of information pulled from that list of murdered Jews from Yizkor books and 1 page of testimony. So those are my 2 sources, what they knew about her profession and her birth year. From this, you can gather only 2 sources. They both seem to agree that, or at least whatever information they have, she was born in 1887 and died in 1942. This is more details on that. Year of birth is not mentioned in the Yizkor book, but both of them do say she was from Kamenets-Litovsk. I don't know how to pronounce Belarusian, so no idea. Sorry, guys. But the page of testimony said that she was born in 1887. Also said they have regularized all these names. I have to hope they're all accurate. This is the page of testimony that my cousin submitted for his mother. This is where it was really helpful to go back and forth between the different pieces of information, because when I found out his name, I found out he submitted for her husband Moishe, and the 3 youngest children in the family, about whom I had never heard until I looked at the Yizkor forms and found all their names. And now I remember them every year. Museum of Family History is a one-man effort. Steve Lasky decided he wanted to collect information. It is particularly focused on New York Jews and New York City specifically, and it's stuff he has collected and maintains his site. He has more than 100 topographic maps. A lot of this is going to be based on where he's researching, but it's all freely available to everybody. So vital records, city directories, voter registration, military, immigration, naturalization, photographs of buildings. One of the more interesting things, he found a bunch of articles published between 1891 and 1910, which is that really big immigration period. So he found this article, multitude of immigrants now pouring into the country of better character than formerly. Okay, nice of you to let us know that. If you have New York City relatives, look through everything on his site and see what is helpful to you. The American Joint Distribution Committee was founded during World War I, provide funding for international relief, and particularly focused on Jews. After World War II, they helped support and resettle survivors. They created a network of social welfare services in Israel. They provided assistance to Jews in North Africa. They have text documents, audio records, videos, more than 100,000 photographs. And like all of this stuff so far, everything I'm talking about, freely available to use. So there's their homepage. You go to the part about the joint and you get explore photo galleries, search our names index. This is always where everybody wants to start. Can you find a name in your family? But look at the other things too. Look at the photos. There's their search form. Oh, look for a name. They didn't have an advanced form. American Jewish Archives. This was established in 1947. Specific focus, history of Jews in the Western Hemisphere. It is always good to make sure you know what their focus is. If they're talking about Jews in the Western Hemisphere, okay, they're not going to be talking about, say, Jews who went to Shanghai. Not going to find anything about them. They have manuscripts, photographs, audio records, video, microfilm. Very common to find all of these things at any of these archives. There's their homepage. Oh, the actual going in person, open by appointment only. But you can certainly look online. They tell you what they have online. First American Jewish families, tracing your Jewish roots. If you want to go and do research in person, they give you information about that. First American Jewish families is particularly helpful if you had people who were early arrivals to North America. Dr. Malcolm Stern created family trees. What he did was research families he considered to be Jewish who were in the United States prior to 1850. I have been told by multiple people, but have not been able to confirm in writing anywhere, that one of his criteria was that if you had a Jewish person marry a non-Jewish person, they don't appear in anything after that. Somebody I was researching who was here when it was the colonies and was Jewish, married a non-Jew. Can't find anything on him in Dr. Stern's family trees. So I don't know if that what I was told is accurate or if he just missed my person. Here's First American Jewish Families. They tell you about the genealogies. If you have anybody that early, absolutely look for them in here. You can write to their archivist. They have fees, and you can come, even though, as it said on the homepage, you have to schedule ahead of time. Okay, YIVO, Institute for Jewish Research. This is the history and culture of Eastern European Jews. So they have things about Yiddish language and literature, the Holocaust, the American Jewish immigration experience, because a lot of Eastern European Jews came here. So manuscripts, records, letters, ephemera, sheet music, artifacts, photographs, lots of stuff. They also teach a lot of classes online that you can attend for free. If you are not already signed up for the Jewish Genealogical Society of Oregon newsletter, we end up listing a lot of the YIVO presentations. So there's their homepage, archives and library. They have events is where you could find their online presentations. They have an online museum. Look through all of these websites. I'm only giving you highlights. Research, archive and library collection, guide to using their stuff. Always a useful thing to check, just like looking in the front of a book to say, what is this book about? How do you research remotely? Permissions, a useful thing. They have the online edition of the YIVO Encyclopedia of Jews in Eastern Europe. Broad information about lots and lots of locations that had known historical Jewish populations, and also information about the countries they were in. So here's page for Romania. You got Hungary. There we go, slideshow of Poland. Why is that showing up when I'm looking at Romania? They're trying to distract you. Here's Belarus, lovely map. See also Soviet state Yiddish theaters, Yiddish language schools. You can drown in information. Here we get for this bit. The region was an important center of Jewish learning. The first yeshivas were established in Brest and Grodno in late 17th century in Minsk. So that's helpful information if you have somebody who was involved in yeshivas. So economic opportunities for Eastern European Jews were limited by regulations and laws. There were a lot of things they didn't let us do. But here's daily life, life in the shtetl. Remember, this one's specific to Eastern European. It's going to be dealing with Yiddish. Here's one wonderful thing about, oops, my nav bar is in my way. Stop there. Yeah, what is the shtetl? What do we call the shtetl? So what this is, a more scholarly approach to that. Okay, let me see. Oops, no, it didn't move. Uh-oh, lost my pointer. There it goes. USC Shoah Foundation. Steven Spielberg is the one who started this. The original focus was preserving survivor and eyewitness testimony by doing oral history interviews. And I think now it's actually more than 55,000 videos of interviews. Here's their homepage. The good news, this is freely available, but the bad news is the complete collection is only available to subscribing institutions. Not everybody can afford to pay to have the full subscription available. I just read something that it is all available countrywide in Israel, not all available countrywide in the US. This is the page specifically about the oral histories. It's the Visual History Archive. So 55,000 video testimonies of survivors and witnesses. You can search by names. You can search by locations. Maybe you can find if you can't find somebody in your family, you found somebody who was from the same town and they gave testimony. Institutions with access. This is where it's like, nope, partial access is granted to some institutions, full access, a fairly small number, but they have to be subscribers. So you might want to find something close to you. Some Holocaust museums and education centers have access, and maybe you have to go to one of those to see stuff. Leo Baeck Institute, focused on the history of German-speaking Jews. It's amazing how many subsets we can come up with. So they have more than 80,000 books, archives, artwork, letters, communal histories. Digibeck, I like that. Digital collections at Leo Baeck. You can, to search Digibeck, click here and type a new search. So type in your search term on their thing. They give you information on how to search their collection. They tell you how you can browse. How to browse archival materials, browse memoirs. So they are trying to help you figure out how to use their collection to help you get the answers you're looking for. And here we have Digibeck, 500 Years of German Jewish History Online. A relatively new entry. You can tell it's a fairly new website. It's not the smoothest site to be able to navigate through. Jeannie Milgram, she was born into a Catholic family in Havana, Cuba. I think if I remember correctly, it was when her grandmother died. She said, guess what? We're Jewish. And she went, what? Um, she had been drawn to Judaism when she found out from her grandmother that they were actually supposed to have been crypto Jews who started in Spain. She wanted to prove that she was born Jewish and that therefore her daughter was born Jewish. And so she researched her family back 15 generations through the women's lines and showed a bit then that she was Jewish. And she is now a practicing Jew. She's the only member of her family who is so. After she did the 15, she had to beat herself. She researched back 7 more generations of women. This is amazing. This is not something practically any Ashkenazi Jew will ever be able to do. But Sephardim, there's a lot better records in a lot of the countries the Sephardim were in, and she was able to document those 22 generations, which is just an amazing research feat, no matter who you're researching. And she has now created a website that has resources specifically for people researching crypto-Jewish heritage. So it's stuff focused on crypto-Jews and Sephardic research. She has a page specifically set up for ancestor search. There's an alphabetical name search, the archives that have information about things, pre-Inquisition documents. The layout is a little focused on trying to be graphically more attractive and not necessarily as functional. So you have these big buttons, and not everything is in English, which is perfectly fine for the language that those records are coming from, but most people using this are going to be English speakers. So I don't know if that's going to change later. It's a relatively new site. Expect changes in the way it's laid out and how the information is presented. Jewish Data is a funky little site. This is one of the very few that I consider a basic site that actually is not free. They do 6-month subscriptions. They count on you not remembering and that you're going to renew. Their big thing is tombstone photographs. This was really, really useful where there are a lot of cemeteries that had not been photographed. There are still a lot that aren't, and they're the only site that has photographs of any of them. They have some naturalization and additional information, but the big focus here is the tombstones. So they're 18, that's right, it's 90 days. $18 for 90 days, and then you can continue, cancel anytime, but you have to remember. So view a list of our international record locations. When you search, I looked for the name Orloff. Very, very basic results type page. You get given names, civil year of record. Not all of these are from cemeteries, but the bulk are where they are. So I scrolled down and I found, way to go. Sam Orloff died 1930 in Chicago, Waldheim. That's my good friend's grandfather who died in 1930. They took this photograph after we had actually discovered the tombstone, because when we first found it, it was lying on its side. As soon as I contacted Waldheim, they say, "Oh, you're related to him? Do you want to pay for upkeep?" They were really fast on asking that. But we did pay to have the tombstone set up again properly. No way to fix the damage of the photograph. The Center for Jewish History. They have information from multiple societies. Jewish Gen is actually part of Center for Jewish History now. They have ones I have talked about. American Jewish Historical Site, Leo Beck, YIVO. They have whole bunches of different kinds of information available. So here's their page. The Lillian Goldman Reading Room and Ackman and Ziff Family Genealogy Institute. You can register for an account, tells you when they're open, additional resources, library database for research. One of my big things is newspapers. There are dozens and dozens of Jewish newspapers that have been digitized and online. These are some examples. These are all freely available. One of the best ones actually at this point, the Historical Jewish Press at the National Library of Israel. Their focus is trying to get as many Jewish newspapers as possible, no matter where they're from. I have an entire talk on Jewish newspapers. They have things from countries all over the world in different languages, everything freely available to you. Okay, there's the old joke about all the New York Jews retiring to Florida. Well, enough of them did that. There's a Florida Jewish newspaper site. Ohio Jewish Chronicle, because there were lots of Jews who went to the Midwest. Compact Memory is German language. So if you have family members almost anywhere, there's probably a Jewish newspaper that was documenting the community. A great resource also, the International Association of Jewish Genealogical Societies. I'm sure many people here have heard of this. Linda, Michelle, Margarita. So it's iajgs.org. This is a federation of primarily Jewish genealogical societies. Some other groups have joined and individuals can, though that's much less common. The website lists societies around the entire world. They have a list of Jewish cemeteries, volunteer effort, whatever people have submitted information. They have the annual International Conference on Jewish Genealogy, mostly annual. It skipped a few years. This year's conference is in Philadelphia. Next year's conference is scheduled for Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is the home of the Allen County Public Library Genealogy Center, a very, very useful resource for research of any kind in genealogy. If you want, you should be thinking about going to Fort Wayne next year. It'll be a good time. If you are just starting your Jewish research, and I have a feeling most of you have already started, but best places to start first, Jewish Gen and Sephardic Gen. Everybody now can find useful information on Jewish Gen. Sephardic Gen is specific to Sephardic research. Jeff, by the way, is very helpful with answering questions. Never hurts to look at Cindy's list. Cindy's list is the genealogy portal. Doesn't have its own information, has links to other information. Of course, there is a category for Jewish. So, general resources, mailing lists, news groups, message boards, societies. And what's the Jewish Genealogy Society that is closest to you? If you don't already know, look at iajgs.org and look under the list of the member societies, what's closest to you. Nolan Altman started a specific effort on trying to get more societies started in areas that were not previously covered. So there are certainly more than there were just a few years ago, and in areas that had not previously had a society. Sure, New York City had one. Okay, we know there are lots of Jews in New York City. But Tulsa, Oklahoma, that was a relatively recent one. So look to see, is there one close to you? I do not think there is a virtual Jewish Genealogical Society that's called that. I know JG is Santa Cruz. That is their focus. They have people from all over the world. I don't know if anybody else has focused that way. But look around to see what is near you and who can help you. So, people with Jewish ancestry have a wealth of online information that is available. Most of it is free. We are very, very fortunate that way. People who think they might have Jewish ancestry should not jump to conclusions based on a name or a look or a tradition. Research. Colonial Jews. The first colonial research I did was on a Jewish man. Woman I worked with had been told her ancestor, her last name, Joseph, came from her Jewish ancestor. They had maintained that information for 250 years, and they were correct. I researched it and documented it. But don't just, oh, well, he looks Jewish. Well, lots of people look a certain way. Rely on documentation and sound research. If you didn't think you had Jewish research and you suddenly find out you do, Jewish ancestry, not everybody in your family may react the same way. Jeannie Milgram's family, she's the only one who has returned to Judaism, and a lot of her family members were less than receptive. That's simply the reality of dealing with being Jewish. However, you should certainly welcome it. And I wish you good luck with all of your research. So now I'm going to close out my thing, stop sharing. I said the joys of being my own moderator. And now, thank you all for staying. And I'm going to see what questions might have. Okay, the handout. Thank you, Linda. There's the handout. Da, 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 da. Handout. Ah, okay. And Linda added the website for JGS Oregon. Thank you. I will probably post this on our YouTube channel. Yes, I will. I'm not sure how long I'll leave it there, but that was part of the reason for recording it. Thank you, Iris. Okay, now what's that about the Showa Foundation? That's true. If you find somebody you think is a family member and say, hey, that's my cousin, they will give you access. I don't think you have to go through strenuous amounts of effort to prove. If you keep doing it over and over, they might get suspicious. But if you think it's a family member, generally speaking, you will be allowed access. There's ours, there's our YouTube. Ooh, what's that? Ah, okay, Valerie. So the program on crypto Jews, is that being offered as an in-person thing in Santa Fe and Albuquerque? I suspect yes, because, well, that is where a lot of crypto Jews went. Let's see the
Yes,
handout.
usually it has been, but post-COVID, perhaps it's online as well. But it's
Okay.
yeah, it's excellent.
Orange County JGS is virtual with monthly speakers. Michelle, are you doing only everything virtual now? Nothing in person?
I posted
Yes,
it.
everything's
Yes,
Okay.
all.
person. I mean, virtual.
Okay.
I'm
So there's
confused.
another one. I know Santa Cruz is doing that. They set up from the beginning that way to be virtual and to have outreach around the world. So that was their whole approach from the very beginning. Thank you, Georgia. Let's see, anything else? Okay, I have hit the end of the questions and comments in the chat. Does anybody else have questions or comments? Raise your virtual hand so I will know you want to talk. You're very welcome. Or have I drowned you in so much information and now you want to run out and look at every one of those sites? Well, I'm not getting any raised hands. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. I'm glad you found the information helpful. The handout will be posted on our webpage, which Linda has thoughtfully provided a couple of times. And I'm looking at my little note sheet here because that's me. Next month, our speaker is actually somebody who's here. It's going to be Valerie Jordan talking about family secrets. And in October, we're going to have Marlis Humphrey, who's going to be talking about Lavor Devor and the Foundation for Jewish Documentation, which is trying to find records of Jews everywhere they can. And Jean, you have your hand raised. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
I'd like to know the link to your YouTube channel.
Let's see. I think Linda put it in the, oops. youtube.com @ and that should work also. And you can always go to the YouTube homepage and search for Jewish Genealogical Society of Oregon, and that should bring it to you also. We do have some videos there already, which are freely available for people to watch. Nope, and they're dropping out like flies. Oh my God, they want to go off and research. Any other questions? I guess not. Thank you all for coming. We look forward to seeing you at one of our presentations in the future. Thank you, Margaret. It was good to see you, Margarita. Bye, everybody.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.